Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's NZHSP live Q&A session on NZHSP Facebook group and also on my LinkedIn profile. As we find our seats, as we turn off our notifications and grab ourselves a cup of tea or coffee on this cold, wintry day, I just wanted to do a quick welcome to you all and also to let you know what we are talking about today. There are 3 topics for today that we are going to go through. First one is, what steps should the Minister for Workplace Relations and Safety, Brooke Van Velden, do during this review period that she has been telling the media about over the last couple of weeks? Over the next few weeks, maybe the next month to come, she's doing a bit of a deep dive into the Health and Safety at Work Act, the performance of the regulator, and also overall confidence in health and safety regulations and legislation here in New Zealand. She's already indicated that she's been speaking to her people in the business community and workers on the ground, and is now reaching out to other partners and bodies to discover exactly the state of play when it comes to health and safety in New Zealand. So I'm going to be working through my 5 things that she should be considering during this period in a moment. Number 2, does it even matter if the legislation changes and if we see an influx of new inspectors on the ground? I felt this is a really important question for the health and safety profession at large. Lots of debate and discussion going on, particularly on LinkedIn at the moment, around the need or the desire for a more meaningful, impactful regulator and more inspectors on the ground. But actually, from a health and safety professional point of view, what does that mean for us? And what does that tell us when we are out there hoping and wishing for that to happen? And third, what we're going to discuss is, what is the health and safety professional's role anyway? We're going to dive deep into exactly what is our purpose and meaning, what are we actually here to do, perhaps explore what our end game is, and also remind ourselves of actually what is our position and purpose within the businesses that we get to engage and work with. So those are the 3 things. What should the Minister of Workplace Relations and Safety be looking at and talking to over this review period? What actually is the role of the regulator and the inspectors for us as a profession? And what is our role anyway? Those are the things that we're going to be delving into over the next 27 minutes or so. So as I said, get yourselves comfortable. Let me know you're here. Give us a like, give us a comment in the comment section directly below this video in your feed. Let me know you're there. Let me know that you can hear me. Hopefully you can see me okay. And for those who regularly tune in, you will notice that no, I have not invested in the shelf yet. I've been promising this for a little while. Hopefully this weekend I'm going to get myself a shelf. I might get myself a nice light fixture and some books, and just make things a little bit more interesting for you. So team, let's delve into it. So in the news over the last couple of weeks, last month really, it's been no hidden secret that the Minister for Workplace Relations and Safety, Brooke Van Velden, has been doing a bit of a deep dive into the overall health and safety performance of New Zealand. She's also been examining the overall performance of regulator WorkSafe NZ. She's making it quite clear that significant change is on the horizon, and pointing towards the legislation and the regulator who seem to be in her sights. So I asked myself the question, if I was here, what would be some of the steps I would be taking now in order to get a true reflection on where things are at? Because my concern is, and we're talking to many others on the ground via email, via phone calls, via conversations, is that there's a concern that she may just simply end up speaking to the usual suspects and get perhaps a bit of a jaundiced view of actually the state of play in the health and safety professional community. So the 5 steps, or the 5 tips that I would put to the minister right now to take in order to get a really better, clearer picture of where we currently stand. First thing would be to go to the Act itself. I would really strongly encourage the Minister of Workplace Relations and Safety to get familiar with the piece of legislation that she is currently looking at taking the knife to. Yes, it is a boring piece of legislation. But actually, when we stop to think about it, what piece of legislation is anything but boring, unless you really kind of get your rocks off by reading that kind of material? She's indicated that it's hard to understand, that businesses and workers are confused, that it's leading to disillusionment, and for businesses and workers to actually not take any action because it's too complicated. So I encourage her to actually spend some time with that piece of legislation, because in all honesty, reading through it one or two times becomes quite bloody clear actually as to what its purpose is, and what the roles are, and what the duties are of those roles. It doesn't take a health and safety professional to understand exactly what the legislation requires of us. The next step I would suggest that she took would be to have a look at the Introduction to the Health and Safety at Work Act Special Guide. It was last updated in 2019, and it breaks down all of the key components within that piece of legislation. It's a document that's been around for donkeys. It's still one of my kind of go-tos when I'm helping businesses, health and safety representatives, organizations to understand exactly what they are responsible for and what good looks like. The document's been around for a while. It's a great document, in my opinion, and simple to read and digest. So before we take the knife or the axe to a piece of legislation, perhaps let's get familiar with it first and foremost, shall we? Let's start to understand that actually the core principles are pretty standard terms, pretty standard practice. When we look to our neighbors over in Australia, we look over to Europe and the UK and in North America and Canada, it's not too dissimilar. So how comes they can get it, but for some reason we can't over here? I'm not really buying that as a legitimate argument. So the first couple of actions: one, get familiar with the Act, and two, get familiar with the guidance material that's been around for many years and has done a really good job at helping businesses and workers and their representatives to understand what the legislation is all about. The third thing I would recommend the Workplace Relations and Safety Minister to do is to speak with a broad scope of people. Get outside of Wellington. Get beyond the institutes and the associations, the organizations, and the individuals who have had benefits or benefited from their relationship with WorkSafe. So whether it's through sponsorships, whether it's through contracts or whatever, speak to people that haven't received payment or had direct influence from WorkSafe over the past decade. That would be my strong suggestion to her. I would be recommending spending time with health and safety practitioners on the ground, health and safety representatives in organizations of all shapes and sizes, not just the large enterprise businesses, but the small and medium companies that have got great health and safety representatives and systems in place, and spending time with health and safety practitioners outside of the usual canon that we often see in the news or we often see up on the stages. By doing so, she will get a much better opinion of where we see things working, where there are opportunities for improvement. The fourth of the 5 things I would be recommending to her would be to speak with people that have recently left WorkSafe. Perhaps within the last 48 months, there is a wealth of knowledge among those who have walked away from WorkSafe. Some amazing minds, some amazing experiences, some amazing people who have had a ton of experiences whilst working within the regulators' space. So in terms of workplace experiences, in terms of the types of cultures that they've experienced within those offices, but also the good side of things, where the things that they've seen that have worked, where resources have been spent well, and the impact that those have made, I would be spending a lot of time with previous employees from WorkSafe NZ. And then finally, perhaps most importantly, would be to go back to the Crown report, the report that was funded directly after Pike River. Within that report, there were a series of recommendations, and eventually it eventuated into a strategy document that told us what we needed to achieve, and within a time frame. The missing component after all these years has been the strategy document that contains the goals, the metrics, and how we're actually going to get there. We've had a succession of CEOs at WorkSafe. unfathomable amount of money being spent on the regulator over those years, but yet we still don't have some clear strategy, plans, and KPIs of how we're actually going to achieve that, which just blows my mind to even think about that. And so for me, that would be my final recommendation to the minister, would be to go back to that report, go back to the strategy documents, and have a really great think about how we ended up in this situation and what it will take in order for us as a nation to have some clear set guidelines, goals, and principles to aim for, so that we are all singing from the same song sheet. So those are the 5 top things I would be recommending Brooke van Velden takes into account over the next few weeks before she gets the axe out and starts chopping. What's your thoughts? Would love to hear your comments or thoughts on what I've just spoken about over the last 10 minutes. Let me know in the comments. I have got the ability to read those comments. It just gives me a bit of a sense check as to whether Matt's gone off on a bender and is completely off his rocker, or if some of this is actually striking home and making sense for you. All right, team. The second point that we're going to discuss today is, even if, and again, this is based on a lot of discussions that I've seen on Facebook and on LinkedIn around our hopes and desires during this kind of weird review period that we find ourselves in, is there's a lot of us, and I'm included in this, is that I really hope to see a significant increase in the number of health and safety inspectors or WorkSafe inspectors on the beat. I also hope to see the legislation and regulations that sit behind it stay intact. In all honesty, I would love to see a significant amount of additional good practice guidelines that we've been promised since day one, that have been either mothballed, forgotten, or projects put in the bad job basket, finally see the light of day. However, there is a really important question that I think needs to be discussed and thought about a little bit more, is actually, what is the role of the inspector and the regulator to the health and safety professional, practitioner, even the business? Because on one hand, if we are hoping that we are going to see an increase in resourcing and an increase in the the visible or the felt feeling of the regulator's presence, then what is that telling us about how we perceive our roles in organizations and the level of influence that we have currently? Because if we're relying on the regulator and having the presence of inspectors in the workplace in order for us to be able to gain momentum, to win the fight, to win an argument, to win the case, to get that project or that new idea over the line, then perhaps we've actually got a little bit more thinking to do for ourselves. We shouldn't be relying on the regulator or legislation, really, in order to make the positive impacts that we are all very capable of achieving within our businesses and within our industries. And so I guess the question is what is the role of the regulator and the inspectors in that equation? Because if we, as I said, if we're relying heavily on them to help us to get those difficult conversations and those ideas and those improvement plans over the line, then I feel that we've actually got a much longer way to go than perhaps we realize collectively. And that in order for us to win the hearts and minds of directors and business leaders, middle managers, health and safety reps, and the team on the ground, perhaps we've got more work to do on ourselves. And in order to win the hearts and minds requires a different set of skills. We shouldn't have to rely on the regulator to come in and to help enforce that situation. We should, in fact, be perhaps investing more time and energy in helping to sell a position or to promote an idea or to get that project over the line by bringing along the journey the stakeholders that are involved in that. So it's just, I guess I felt it was worth raising the question because I think it perhaps forces us collectively to ask the question of actually, what is the role of the regulator? What is the role of the inspectors? Are we relying too heavily on them to get our point of view across the line? And if that is the case, what does that tell us about us as an industry? And what do we need to be doubling down on in order to be winning the hearts and minds en masse easier? Really interesting question, a bit of a thought piece for today. Personally, that's why I've spent a lot of time and energy um, training myself, doing things like this, is to help me to become a better speaker, to be able to formulate ideas on the go, and make them digestible and easy to understand and engage with. And I feel that as a community, I think that's one of the areas that we're perhaps quite weak in, and I think certainly an area that needs to be invested more in as well. Cool. All right, team, flashing through it. And then the third topic for today was, again, another question for you. What is the role of the health and safety professional within the workplace? Like, actually, what is it we're here to do? What is our purpose? I'm going to just grab myself a glass of water, and I'm going to sit back and just wait to see if anyone is prepared or brave enough to put an answer in the comments. What is the purpose of the health and safety manager, advisor, coordinator, consultant in the workplace? What do we do? What are we here for? Let me know in the comments. I'm going to very quickly just grab myself a glass of water, and hopefully there'll be a really wicked comment or two or three for me to talk to. Come on, fingers on the keyboards. I'll be right back. And yes, I did actually just walk away from the computer during a live feed. I know, crazy, I know. But I'm really keen to see what your thoughts are. So I'm giving you guys the time right now to give me a comment back, anything, even if it's a smiley face. What is our role? What are we here to do? What is our function within the business? If we are a health and safety manager, advisor, coordinator, consultant, maybe you have another title, maybe you might be a business partner or whatever. What is our role? What's our function? I was really lucky to attend a training session put on by Nipin Anand late last year here in Canterbury. Did a bit of a tour across the country, and during his workshop, just before we broke for lunch, the food had come out. Everyone was ready for a bit of a feed, and I decided to ask a curveball question. Sorry, everybody, but I thought it was an important question. And I asked him the same question. I was like, okay, well, after everything we've just discussed, I'm now feeling a little bit anchorless in terms of what our role actually is. And Nipin's response was really quite neat. I actually really appreciated it. His take on it was that the role of the health and safety professional is to first and foremost win the attention of the senior leaders, for us to be able to actually have a part or a place to sit at that decision-making table. And for many in the health and safety profession, I've been there, and it's a shitty feeling, is being stuck in the corridors, hoping that we might get that 2-minute time to go in and do a presentation in front of the board or the ELT. It might be a bit of an annual nice to have or whatever it might be, but actually we should be in on the decision making table. And Nipin went further and said that what our role is to ask the probing questions of the officers of an organization, to really go deep with them and to ask the whys and the whats and the hows, so that it really opens up their eyes in terms of actually what their duties are, what their responsibilities are, not only from a legal point of view, but morally and ethically. How do we bring this organization together on this journey? How do we achieve these objectives without hurting people along the way? What if we did this and this? What would that mean for you or the organization as well? Cool. I'm really appreciating some comments coming through. Luke, thank you. So in terms of the health and safety role, what is it? Well, obviously to stand up for health and safety over profits, in my opinion. Thanks, Luke. Absolutely. We are on the same page, buddy. Yes, Businesses, PCBUs have to be financially viable, otherwise they won't last very long. However, there has to be a balance between profits and ensuring that we follow and ensuring that we get our people home safely, that we are creating safe, healthy work environments for one another. Otherwise, it's like a house of cards and the whole thing falls, right? So thank you, Luke. I appreciate your comment. And we've also got another comment. We should be part of the roundtable. Yep, thank you. I totally agree too. And there's, I mean, I've only heard of a few boards out there that have specifically got a dedicated health and safety officer role. It's quite unusual, and it should be the usual. It should be standard. And as a profession, I feel that we collectively need to stand in that light and actually find ourselves in that position, in that roles, rather than on the weekends standing at the barbecue with the neighbors. What is it you do again, Matt? I'm a health and safety consultant. Lead balloon. Instead, it should be, holy cow, thank you for your service. Tell us more about that. What is it you do? How do you engage effectively with the business leaders? How are you making effective change in your workplace? And those are the kinds of conversations that should be happening. And it's going to take a long time for us to get to that stage, but we all need to be pushing back and actually demanding to have that space with the officers. And once we've got that space, or seat at the table, we need to ensure that we create a safe space to have those difficult conversations, to enable the officer, whether it's the CEO or the board, to be comfortable enough in themselves to have really frank and robust conversations, risk assessments, considering all of the various potentials and what those could mean, in order to help steer the business in the right direction, taking input from the men and women on the ground, enabling business leaders to understand that they don't necessarily have to have the answers all of the time, and that actually the answers aren't here. They're not with the health and safety manager. Oh no, we're just here to facilitate conversation between you guys at the decision-making table and the men and women over there that are creating all of your profits. They're the ones with the answers. They're the ones creating the risk. They're the ones managing the risk. Those are the ones who are there day in, day out, working it through and making it happen. And we need to forge them together and create a safe space where those kind of conversations can take place. That, in my mind, is where the health and safety practitioners' skill set really needs to rise to the top. So yes, it's important to have the papers, aiming for that level 6 or even higher if you can get to the graduate diplomas or whatever it may be. Yes, you need to have a number of years of experience within your industry and your field. However, you also need to have the skills to help break down the armor that the board of directors and the CEO and the ELTs and whatever acronyms you want to throw at it put up, because they feel that they have to come up with the answers and they have to be the ones that forge the direction. Break that down a little bit and enable them to understand and appreciate what's going on in the coalface, and vice versa. And then you are more than halfway there to creating a really dynamic, safe, I would also argue environmentally and in quality and performance, which is going through the roof in all the right ways. Which then leads me to the final point, which is I feel that, yes, we're health and safety practitioners and professionals, but we are, at the end of it, when it's all boiled down, facilitators of change. That's our thing. That's what we do. We identify improvement opportunities. We identify the things that are working well. We put those into a pot. We boil them up. We get feedback from the people on the ground. We get feedback from middle managers. We get feedback from the senior execs and the boards. Figure out exactly where we're headed. Look at the company's strategies and the objectives and the goals, and come up with formulas and ways in which to make even more improvements and to test those and to play around with them and to involve as many of the parties as we possibly can. That, in my mind, is where, as a profession, we need to be headed. That's the direction I see myself going. And I really, really encourage all of you to be thinking hard about some of the things that I've talked about over the last little while in terms of how confident am I at selling my position, my thoughts, my ideas, my schemes, my concepts. How confident am I at helping to break down some of that armor, some of that ego when it comes to the foremen and the site supervisors, to the men and women at the coalface, the middle managers who are under the pump, all the way up to the exec and the board who have this kind of like, we must speak like this, we must be dressed like this, we must be seen to be headed with confidence in a particular direction. How do we break that down to a point where it's like, okay, cool, I see you, I see your stuff, awesome, congratulations, well done. But right now, we've got an issue, we've got a problem, there's a rising risk. One of the controls listed on that register is no longer as effective as it once was, and we need to have some robust conversations about how we can mitigate that. That's my thinking. That's kind of where I feel the health and safety profession needs to go. I see overseas that many have made some major inroads and strides in that space. I'm excited about things like human organizational performance. I'm excited about open to change that I attended yesterday with Daniel Hamadil and Rob. Yesterday, it was amazing, eye-opening stuff. I really strongly encourage everyone who's tuning in to start thinking about, what is our role? What are we actually here to do? Is it to be the superhero that runs off and makes sure that people stay safe and keep themselves out of harm's way? Or is it to influence change, to identify opportunities for improvement, to empower the people around us so that we can take off that superhero cape and enable businesses, organizations, teams, individuals to really flourish in their working environments? Bit of a different episode today, but I feel that it's actually really, really important. I feel that right now, with the amount of potential change on the horizon for Health and Safety New Zealand Inc., I feel that there are some significant opportunities out there right now. And if we're going to ride this tide of change, I feel like we need to, as a collective, start to think about some of these questions and start to answer some of these questions for ourselves and within our communities, having these types of conversations, because at the end of the day, we're pretty bloody awesome. And I guess it's too easy to tie our performance and how we feel to the performance of the regulator or the legislation or New Zealand's workplace fatality stats and injury statistics and all of that. We've got a long way to go, but all we can do is control what is within our sphere of influence, and that's ourselves and the people that we get to work with and within our immediate community. So that's why I'm so pleased that I took the chance to create New Zealand Health and Safety Professionals when I did. It's now over 3,500 of us. I just warmly encourage you to continue leaning on this community, whether it's on Facebook or LinkedIn, whether it's on the WhatsApp group or wherever it may be. Yeah, we're all here for each other. So just keep on rocking, everybody. We'll continue watching the news as it all unfolds. Hopefully, some of those ideas and recommendations that I suggested for the Minister of Workplace Relations and Safety takes on board. I would be really disappointed if her peers, her sphere of influence is as narrow as I suspect it will be, because she's missing out on a whole heap of golden nuggets and opportunities. But anyway, we'll see what happens. So anyway, keep tuned, keep doing your thing, continue being awesome, everybody. If you're not on the WhatsApp news bulletin service, it's free. It's just a way of getting news blasts from latest news items through to events and all that kind of good stuff. The links are on the Facebook group. I'll link all of that at the bottom of this once I've wrapped up. And also, almost 100 people have joined the waitlist for the NZHSP Summit, which is taking place this time next year. Details will be released, but right now what we're doing is getting everyone to join the waitlist and to answer some simple questions to let us know exactly what it will take to make this the very best health and safety conference experience you have ever had. That is the promise. And we can do that because we are taking the input from the people that will be attending the conference. That's how confident we will be. It's going to be significantly different from so many different angles, and I can't wait to start sharing some of those details with you all. So I'll share the link to that as well. So it is 2:32 Friday afternoon. Have an amazing weekend, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. For those who are on the live call, you guys rock. Thank you. Thank you for those who contributed. And for those who have caught the recorded session, I see you too. So thanks for being awesome. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channels and share this stuff. If it's useful to you, I'm sure it'll be useful to the people in your world as well. Okay, take care, everyone. Thank you, and have a great weekend.